Fences. When I was young, I grew up on the second floor. Well, I grew up for my first few years, 8 years. We lived on the second floor of my grandfather's grocery. Yeah, it was kind of nice, you know. Even at night, you could go down and get anything you wanted from the grocery. The penny case of candy, and it was a penny, was my playpen. Just 2 blocks up the street was this big, beautiful, park-like setting, you know, lots of beautiful grass, well-maintained, well-trimmed. All these little stones of various colors sitting around on the hillsides with a wonderful wrought iron fence around it. And at the entrance, a couple of big stone pillars. Every evening they would close and lock the gates. And I don't know what time in the morning they opened them up, but I did notice one thing. That place, I never saw anybody who was inside who were trying to get out. And I never saw anybody outside who was really fighting to get in there. It was St. Mary's Cemetery. And it was fenced. What are fences for? To keep something in or something out. I can remember my grandfather sort of built a fence for me. Right out in front of the store was a busy street. 2 lanes with parking lanes on either side, but it was a busy street. It was one of the main streets in our town. And of course, when I was 3, 4, don't you cross that street. I heard that so often. One day, you should have seen me. I just stuck out my chin and I crossed the street, and then I walked up and down the other side of the street. Just arrogant. See me? Did I get it? Yeah, I dared cross one of those fences, one of those boundaries. Yeah, and we carry a lot of fences inside us, in our minds and in our hearts. Fences that we didn't build all of them. We may have made some of them, but we didn't build all of them. Some of them were built, I'm going to go back and say thousands of years ago, and have been handed down. They were built at a time when we thought the earth was flat, when you thought you could fall off. Sounds silly now, but it wasn't preposterous to those people. All kinds of rules about life and about what you can and can't do. And we carry some of those still, don't we? Little boxes we keep ourselves in. It's amazing. We use them to protect our theory or our concepts of morality, of ideas of right and wrong, our system of social order and government, our philosophy of life, our religion, our concept of truth. A variety of ways. We realize sometimes that the only effect they have on our lives is to limit us, keep us stuck in a little small place. Fences, our mental fences, they are prescribed limits on which we dare not cross, in fact, or we'll face our own condemnation. You know, we limit on our growth. They keep us from getting what we desire, kind of put a cloud between us and the sun. We force the repression of our feelings. Don't feel what you feel. I was told that so often as a kid. I remember when my dog, well, the question is, did he really run away? Isn't that one of those great fables that I thought, why would he run away from me? I sat on the steps at the back part of my grandfather's store facing the backyard and just cried. And what did I hear? Words of comfort. Don't cry, we'll get you another puppy. But I love that one. Don't feel what you feel. Oh, okay. Clamp that down, put a big box around that. Yeah. Don't see what you see. Don't hear what you hear. But all the time, we know, we hear, we see, and we really want to. But they told us, they said, no, you can't do that. Don't see, don't hear. We imprison ourselves in time and space. It's amazing how then we dare not move, afraid we're going to trespass. We divide here from there, not realizing that when we get there, it's here. But it stays there until we get here. Follow that one, if you will. It's amazing how we box ourselves. Keep ourselves, well, I tried to make this kind of alliterative, but it didn't work. We fix our minds and fetter our bodies. Sort of works. Fix and fetter. Stuck. Keep ourselves in these rigid little things. And then there's this great God we've been worshiping for generations. Certainly you've given offerings to, they say, the great God, they say this, and they say that. We find out eventually that the message of they say is, you can and you can't. You shall and you shan't. You will and you won't. You'll be lost if you do, and damned if you don't. You know that expression, about face? When I played with the American Legion Band, we had to periodically stand for inspection. Me with my bassoon very nicely next to me. I'm sure glad I don't carry a tuba. We'd stand in this wonderful, nice row and line ourselves up, and then this person would come down and look at each one of us like we were a piece of something to be. And then he'd tell the person that was going down the row with him what was wrong with our uniforms. And we get points for that. Every year we played for the National Convention, wherever it might be, and the bands that would compete, they would stand inspection like that, and then they would perform. We would perform 3 pieces. Each band would do 3 pieces, and they'd be judged on the playing and the inspection. And occasionally we won. Most often we came in second. There was a band from the East that had lots of money, and they could hire musicians. We couldn't. And they always seemed to have the best of everything. And they'd win a lot. And then they wouldn't come one year, and we'd win. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And I had to learn that term, about face. What does it mean? Well, to turn around. In the Bible, there's another expression that's similar. Repent. Rethink. To see it a different way. to open your mind to something new and different and wonderful. Now, here's a reality. The clock of time is not running out. There's no hurry. You've been here a long time, and you're going to be here a while yet. We live in a universe that's fenced only by infinity. And that's the greatest fence to have. Oh, what's wonderful about it? Well, there's a little trick of your vision. The closer you get to infinity, the more it recedes from you. So you don't have to worry about ever reaching it. There's that much open before you. You're not going to reach the end of the universe. You're not going to see the end of good. To have and to hold. You've heard that, haven't you? They used to say, to have and to hold. Is that what the meaning of life is? To have and to hold? Or is it to be? To become what God created you to be? I think that's more what it's all about. We're limited by our own mental concepts about the limits we put around ourselves, the limits we've been handed and have accepted. God's placed no limits on his creation, no limits on his resources. And I think to really discover this is to be born again into a bigger world, into a bigger life. There are a variety of fences, and perhaps you remember some of the fences you have in your life. Here, I've got a slide for you. Heredity. Oh, that'll keep you stuck. Bad luck. Environment. Thou shalt. Thou shalt not. You can't. You shouldn't. Too old, too poor, too young, too sick. Never had a chance. Too late now. What's the use? Anybody recognize any of those fences? Yeah. Well, think about those and think about where they might have come from in your life. Would we knowingly put all of these restrictions on ourselves? I think we've been handed a lot in the consciousness of the human people that we've known, in the consciousness that humanity is handed from generation to generation. Some of the fences were put up generations ago at a time when it was necessary for protection from certain things. We don't need them now. We're not running around with dinosaurs who are going to eat us. Generally. Most of the time. They say, it's been a god to many of us. And in the Old Testament, we have another god called Molech. This is from 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter, verse 10. Josiah sent some men to Hinnom Valley, just outside Jerusalem. That's the valley. You've heard of Gehenna? It was the garbage dump. Fires burned day and night. And this is the beginning origin of the concept of hell, the burning fires of hell. So these men sent to the Hinnom Valley just outside Jerusalem with orders to make the altar there unfit for worship. The altar there was built by the Ammonites for their god Molech. By destroying this altar, as it continues, that way people could no longer use it for sacrificing their children to the god Molech. Do we do that? You betcha. Molech. The word in Hebrew means king, ruler, counselor, judge. Well, when you think about all those, they say, well, what's going to happen? If you violate what they say, why, they'll judge you. And sometimes they say we put in the place of a king, a ruler who rules over us, and we accept what they say. And who are they? The god Molech. The story is that the people sacrificed children. But if you look at the story really, as we should, with the eyes of metaphysics, what are children? New ideas, new concepts, new desires, new possibilities. And what is it to burn your children but to destroy these things before you ever bring them into light because of what the god Molech, they say? The fences. Don't they keep you stuck? Just imagine. I'm now coming up on 70. You heard that, right? And I still pay attention to what Grandpa said. I still can't cross Ross Avenue. My world would be Grandpa's store, the building, the yard. And that'd be pretty small, wouldn't it? Think of all the children, the possibilities, the ideas I've had in all these years that I wouldn't have experienced. That seems absurd, of course. But what about the fence? You can't. You shouldn't. Well, our people don't believe that. We don't live like that. We don't go there. Oh, well, maybe we should. So I'm asking you to become fence wreckers. Let's get rid of the altar that we've built to Molech, the god to whom we sacrifice our desires, our dreams, new possibilities of good because, well, somewhere along the line, somebody handed us a fence or we constructed a fence. We boxed ourselves in and limited ourselves. We've just come through a period of resurrection, right? Well, let's resurrect. How about a new life? To roll away the stone is to set yourself free. Rolling away the stone is removing the fences in front of you. If they tore down that fence at St. Mary's Cemetery, nobody's going to get out. I'm thinking of the one my grandmother's buried in. It's 40 miles east of Cincinnati in the country. There isn't a fence around it because somebody was wiser and knew they're not getting out and we're not going to go in. So they left it free and open. Life is free and open. Take a journey around yourself. Take a journey not only around you, but within you. See what kind of boundaries you keep that are keeping you from experiencing greater good, greater joy, keeping you from feeling who and what you are, feeling what is going on inside you. That's part of our nature too, not only thinking, but feeling. But we fence that. Don't feel what you feel, okay. You're a child of God. That's a reality. You're a child of God. But the first thing we must learn to do is to think like one. Life without limits. Life without fences. We're no longer children. We don't need a playpen. Isn't that what they used to call them when you gave your child about what? A 4 foot by 4 foot square to live in, to play in. to move around in. Why? So they'd be safe. Well, you're safe. It's an infinite universe. It's a benevolent universe. And all the good of God is right here. Look at those fences and begin one by one to about face. Look at them and say, hey, wait a minute. I don't need this anymore. This no longer gives me what I want. I want more life. I want more love. I want more peace. I want more joy. Start to tear down those fences. Just try it. You can just kind of put your foot on the other side and see what it feels like to be free. You were created to be free.